Welcome back to Texas Rangers with the Boys. We are the Boys, your daily Texas Rangers podcast by a couple of pro wrestlers who love Rangers baseball. And hey, we want to thank you for making us the first listen of your day. This is your boy Kev, aka YBK, Kevin Frazier. Man, oh man, do we have an exciting show today. Coming off the weekend, there's always a lot to talk about with the Rangers. And man, let me tell you, we got tons of stuff going on with injury news, what moves are going to get made. AL West is heating up, lots of drama going on in the division. And then we got 3 box scores from a huge road series against the Kansas City Royals. So lots to talk about. Before we get started, let me tell you where to find me on social media. That's Kevin Lee Frazier. That's Frazier. You can also find Texas Rangers with the Boys on social media, TX Rangers WTV. Don't forget to check out the website, TexasRangersWithTheBoys.com.
All one word.
And before I turn it over to my co-host, don't forget to check us out on the CTH network here on YouTube at Chilltown Hoops. A lot of new fans, a lot of new faces. Thank you guys for bearing with us. And, hopefully we've converted a few Texas Rangers fans. Well, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, as always, the 300-pound manimal, a.k.a. Bull. I saved it for you today. I didn't tell him who the 2023 World Series champs were.
Oh, it's the Texas Rangers. Yeah, no, every day until at least October 31st or so, it's gonna be Texas. Even when they're eliminated, it's still Texas until someone else wins. But that elimination hasn't happened yet.
No,
Rangers are playing pretty good ball right now. They're a couple of games over 500 now, and they've put together 3 series wins in a row, which after playing some meh baseball for a while, 3 wins in a row feels pretty good, or 3 series wins in a row feels pretty good. They haven't quite went on any of those big winning streaks or won a handful of games in a row just yet, but you kind of feel like it's coming. Sunday's game, that was it could have been a real disappointment. There were parts of it that were, but at the end of things, John Gray just continues to be so strong on the hill for them. They got a couple of runs late, and they managed to get out of Kauffman Stadium with a series W against a pretty good upstart young Royals team. They got to Michael Walker pretty good, but the other starting pitching was pretty good. And, we were probably thinking going into today that with a kid with a 6 ERA at AAA that they were going to have their way with him. But once he kind of figured things out there after the first inning, he was good. So lots of good young players up there in Kansas City, and they got a nice mix of some veterans up there. And I love Pasquatch.
Yeah.
Is that not that's the best bit in baseball, is when he gets a hit and the Sam Squanch comes out there, and
Sasquatch comes
out.
Probably
the Pasquatch makes its presence known up there at Kauffman Stadium. So some cool bits there. But before we get into the show, start talking about baseball, I'll tell everybody you can find me on Twitter, Manimal Bull, Instagram, Manimal300, and both Facebook and TikTok at Bull Pro. Whatever your favorite platform of social media is, hit me up on there. We'll talk about some Rangers baseball. I'm trying to talk about other teams. It's not as easy as I thought it would be, but I'm trying. If you don't get a response back about a different team, maybe I didn't have anything nice to say, and my mom always taught me just to keep my mouth shut if I don't have nothing nice to say. So, so find me out there on the social medias. Real quick before we start the show, got to pay a couple of bills, so we're going to remind you that Friday, May 24th, at the Southside Preservation Hall in Fort Worth, Texas, just on the south side of Interstate Highway 30, over there by the John Peter Smith Hospital. Matt Warpro will be back with Slam and Destroy 2. It's going to be a big show. We can't wait for everybody to join us out there and have a big time with Matt Warpro. We're going to have the wrestling inside, but out back we're going to have Big Dog's Hot Dogs. What's the smash burger? I can't think of the
Kelly's Onion Burgers.
Kelly's Onion Burgers. I don't know why they were escaping my mind today, but Kelly's Onion Burgers. He's a kind of a big deal around the area. He's a musician and stuff, so he does his music stuff and makes some of the best smash burgers in town by trade, and then kind of a big musician around town. So Kelly, he's a cool dude. He'll be there. Big Dogs guys will be out there. Gotta have hamburgers and hot dogs out back. Why wouldn't you? It's Memorial Day weekend.
Mm.
So we're going to have hamburgers, hot dogs inside. It's Memorial Day weekend, bro. You got to have some beer. So Martin House Brewing, they're going to be inside. They're not selling beer. We're not selling beer. No. You show up, you prove that you're 21 years of age or older, and we will give you some beer. And if you want to take that money that you saved on beer, head right over to the Starry's Ice Cream Lady and get you some of that ice cream, because that right there is the best ice cream in Dallas-Fort Worth, and you can get it Friday, May 24th at the Southside Preservation Hall in Fort Worth, Texas, with Matt War Pro, Slam and Destroy 2.
Man, heck of a promo for a heck of a wrestling company that puts on one heck of a show. Well, speaking of a heck of a show, the American League West really has gotten it's pretty tight all of a sudden, and it's funny we've kind of, the Rangers and the Mariners have become been front runners really since day one. Rangers especially, Mariners kind of fought their way into that spot. But the Oakland Athletics, if you'd have told anybody that they'd be fighting it out for, honestly, like 2.5 games out of the division, I don't think anybody would have believed you if they'd have told you that Oakland and the Angels are fighting it out for last place. They'd have thought you meant
Houston.
Yeah, Houston. You mean Oakland and the Angels are fighting it out for last place. But instead, no, it's Houston and the Angels fighting it out for last place. A lot of drama going on.
Lots of injuries. Yeah, lots of injuries.
About the Oakland team.
They're fun. They got some kids in there that ain't afraid to let the hands fly, and they hit a lot of home runs, and they got a really, really solid bullpen. Man, I would rate it probably top 5 in the game right now. They've got, a handful of guys that last year were making starts for them. This year are, in that bullpen, closing things down. Urquhart, Mullen, those dudes, not very good as starters, but they've been really, really good out of that bullpen for Oakland. I really like the Langoliers kid that catches for them, and they've got a good group of young players, and they're on the up path. They're shooting upward, and they're trending upward, and they've got hey, when you trade away Chapman and Murphy and all of these guys, and then those other teams, the Braves, they had to give Braves and Blue Jays and the teams that took those guys on, they had to give up really good young players to get them. And now we're finding out how good those young players are. And now that they're kind of finding out what they've got in the pitching staff, and they're starting to become a pretty good little team. I don't know that they're going to hold it for 162, but I could definitely see them being around 500. And I think we talked about that early in the season, that they were going to be much improved. And when we did previews of the AL West, when we did previews of the A's, we talked about they may be in last place, but they may not be this year. They may make some of those improvements, and they may start rising a little bit, and they have so far early in the season. Now, it's a long grind, and it's just May 5th or 6th or something like that, May 6th. So there's a little bit of time left in the season, and a lot can happen between now and then. But, man, they're starting to put it together, and that bullpen is really strong, and there's some good pieces down there, and they've got some good young players that are playing some good baseball right now. And they're not a fun team to have to go play 4 in 3 days because they're young, and playing a doubleheader don't bother them nearly as much as, although the Rangers aren't a very old team either, so I won't make excuses. Maybe that's why they let these guys play a scheduled doubleheader. They just put it on the schedule. But I mean, from all I can gauge from everybody that goes to Oakland these days, the less time in Oakland, the better.
Well, let me kind of give you a funny thing that's a little misleading about this Oakland team is that it's just a bunch of kind of, ragtag crew of guys that that aren't that talented, just putting some pieces. Now listen, Brent Rooker, first round draft pick, but just didn't make it with that team. Tyler Nevin, first round draft pick, just didn't make it with where he got drafted. JJ Bleday, first round draft pick. Abraham Toro, first round pick, big time prospect, just didn't make it, making it with the A's. So like these are really good players.
Mm-hmm.
This is this is Oakland A's 101. Like take the guys that nobody, that's got talent that maybe have failed a little bit somewhere else.
Yep.
Give them a chance to play their way into
and the change of scenery. I know you've heard this phrase before. Sometimes guys need a change of scenery.
Right.
That's just the truth. Some guys need it. Maybe it doesn't mean they're bad players, but it just wasn't happening for them there. So I mean, I feel that for a lot of guys, and to see Oakland kind of rising up out of the ashes just because I mean, look in 2023 or 2022 or whatever, after the strike and all of that stuff, they just gutted that thing. They went out there right in the face of what they just tried to do and get people to be more competitive. They went out and gutted the thing, and they moved the team, and everybody, there's going to be good young players out there, but nobody's going to watch them in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to watch them in Oakland. They're firm on that. And but to get off of Oakland, the rest of the AL
there's just
West,
a lot to like about the team, man.
There is. I mean, we're previewing them a little bit later. We'll talk about them a little bit more. They do have some veteran pitchers in that rotation that are, eating innings for them right now and getting them into the bullpen in a good place. The Astros bullpen didn't do the Rangers any favors this weekend when they were playing Seattle. That continues to be a really, really, really sore spot in their lineup. And but they're going to start getting a little healthier. Christian Javier made a rehab start against Frisco on Saturday night. Got outpitched by Emiliano Teota. So now that's Justin Verlander and Christian Vasquez that Emiliano Teota's outpitched in the minor leagues now. So that's a fun little thing for him. But yeah, the Astros, the bullpen's still struggling. They're getting a little more healthy. We'll see what happens.
Well, Rangers sitting a half game back to Seattle. Seattle had a pretty decent weekend thanks to Oakland. Thanks to Houston. So Rangers still hanging out, just a half game back in the division. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rangers kind of news. I think the big one, no one wanted to see. Well, there's two. I think it's kind of two because I don't know if we've gotten both of these stories out yet. But we know that Nate Eovaldi's gone to the 15-day, so that's unfortunate. And then now Wyatt
we talked about him leaving.
Yeah. Now Wyatt Langford also on the 15-day.
Mm-hmm.
So we got some moves. There's going to be some. We already know one move this guy.
Yeri was up with the club in Kansas City. I imagine Tuesday he'll be optioned back down because they'll need starter help on Tuesday. And I would think that Jack Leiter is the first guy in line to get that spot start. He's continued to, he had another good outing last week in Albuquerque. He did give up a couple of home runs, but it's Albuquerque. It's 7,000 feet in the air. So you're bound to give up some home runs, but he'd probably be first in line to make that start. Maybe possibly Owen White, because both of those guys are on the 40-man roster. So there's a couple of options there. But I would imagine that Yeri will be optioned. You didn't see him this weekend. Luckily, the Rangers were in a spot where they didn't really need him. I don't know. He might have pitched Saturday night. Did he? I can't remember. I thought Jonathan Hernandez closed that thing out. They're trying to get John Hernandez as many innings as possible.
I think Hernandez was the guy that closed out the game on
Saturday night. Yeah. I think they're trying to get him.
Sorry.
Yeah, they want to get Hernandez as much confidence as possible. But then with Wyatt Langford, we haven't heard a coinciding move just yet. Three internal candidates would be Huff, Ornelas, and Dustin Harris.
Yep.
Those are probably the three guys that if you see anybody come up, those would be the three guys that would come up. I'm kind of thinking it might be Dustin Harris. Could be Sam Huff. Sam Huff had a big week in Round Rock this week out in Albuquerque. 3 or 4 home runs. Big week for Huff. So it might be him. Ornelas is having a good season so far in Round Rock. Dustin Harris he's been okay. Not as much pop as I was hoping that he would produce, but that's okay. He's still young. It could still come. It's not like it's the end of the world. But yeah, we'll see probably one of those guys. And if it's Dustin Harris, we'll probably get a chance to see him make his major league debut at some point this year, this week. So good for him if it's him. But we'll see. We'll know more tomorrow morning when we put the show out as they move into the second game of a 4-game set.
Yeah, I mean, any person you think's got more of an edge than another. I know we had said off air that both Harris and Huff sat a game, possibly just a day off.
They were. Neither of them were in the lineup last night for Albuquerque, and they had a 5:05 start, so it was a little bit later after they would have known that Wyatt Langford is going to the IL.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are having they're pretty much having almost the same same kind of season right now. The only difference would be Huff slugging a little bit more and Harris with a little more, speed on the base paths with, 7 stolen bases. Huff, both of them are hovering around the 260, 345, 350. And then, like you said, Huff slugging a little bit more and then Harris a little more on the base paths. The Rangers have a lot of options to do whatever the heck they want to do, to be perfectly honest.
It's going to be 3 or 4 weeks. With Langford, he's got a hamstring strain, so it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks for sure.
Well, and I think the reason Huff makes sense is because Langford is a DH, so it gives you the DH kind of player. Huff would be a nice slide in for a DH.
Yeah, and he's really earned at bats at Round Rock this year.
Right, and then if you're looking for the outfield, then Harris is the obvious option in that regard. So it kind of just depends on what the Rangers are looking to do. Because Jankowski has been fantastic as an extra outfield option. So no one hates him as the 4th outfielder with the outfield as it is right now. So again, in that scenario, and again, you've also got emergency outfielder in Zeke Duran. So I think
and this is one of those reasons. Remember when we talked about all off season, the buzz was trade Zeke Duran, trade Leody Tavares, trade these guys that may or may not have a spot on the club. Well, they have spots on the club. You know what I'm saying? Josh Smith, who was one of those guys that got talked about in the offseason, put him in a deal and send him somewhere. He's your starting third baseman right now.
Right. One of the best players in the league.
You don't have if you don't have Leody Tavares in center field and you've got Evan Carter and you're playing Wyatt Langford, now you're at Jankowski in left field, and you don't have a 4th outfielder that you feel is comfortable with like you do with Jankowski. These are those reasons why when you have established Major League Baseball players on your team, you don't just send them away because there might not be room or there's log jams, because those things always tend to work themselves out. And then at the end of the season, when you got a bunch of guys healthy and they're all playing well, that's just a benefit. That's just that's what you want. And it never hurts to have 30 or 35 or 40 guys on your 40-man roster that are all major leaguers.
Yeah, and it gives you options too, especially with, with the double headers coming up and, just the way the game plays. We had a 17-game in a row stretch. Depth is extremely important. Batting splits and matchups, the game has evolved into that so much, to the point now where it's like, the more options I think you have, the better. And I think, I like any of it. Like whatever they choose, I think is going to be fine. And I'd still, even if we don't see Dustin Harris now, it still wouldn't shock me that Dustin Harris makes his MLB debut at some point this year. If he keeps playing at the level, the level he's at or a little better. I think I wouldn't be shocked that if all these guys on the 40-man roster that are at AAA
with the exception of maybe Corniel. I mean,
everybody
else besides, I mean, you take him off of there, and all the 39 other guys could all play for the Texas Rangers, I think, right now. I mean, it's not like last year where you've got Wynn and they had so many guys. I can't even think of their names, but Otto and Howard and guys that weren't going to help the Texas Rangers at all that season and didn't, and were gone in a short order when they got healthy. All of those guys, Taylor Hearn, none of those guys were, AJ Alexi is pitching in Double-A right now. I mean, that's where those guys are now. This year, it's not like that. I mean, even the kid that they just put on the 40-man roster that they got from the Mets, he could pitch in the big leagues. I mean, he's going to pitch for Round Rock for a little bit, but I mean, I would expect that he's going to be an option at some point for Bochy when he has a move like this to make. If someone goes down, because I mean, it probably ain't done. I mean, guys get hurt. That's the way it goes. I mean,
it does go that way, man.
They have managed very well so far, and I mean, that's just part of having a guy like Bochy in your dugout that can consistently, work through these things and keep the team competitive. And we saw that. We've seen that with good managers that the Rangers have had in the past, whether it be Ron Washington or Jeff Bannister did that in 17 or 17, I think it was. I mean, they weren't a very good team, but he kept them competitive and in the thing the whole season, even though they weren't a playoff team that year. But, they were competitive all the way up until the last week of the season.
Yeah. We feel very confident with Bruce Bochy. More injury news. Now, Max Scherzer is kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern.
Yeah, he didn't make a start over the weekend for either Round Rock or Frisco. We'll see if that changes this week. No rush, really. I mean, honestly, I know that sounds weird when you're talking about having a Hall of Fame guy, but this is a guy that we weren't expecting to have back in May at all. Mm-mm. So if we're just a little bit slower, hopefully this doesn't linger and turn into something bigger. I think that's the biggest issue. I mean, everybody seems to be pretty optimistic right now that it's not going to, but we'll just see. But having Eovaldi go down for maybe 4 weeks or so, it'd be nice to get Scherzer on the mend and start heading this way back.
Yeah. The optimism stays pretty high because Dane Dunning has had coming off a really nice start. I feel like his ERA is I can't say it's inflated because he's had some rough patches.
He's had some balls hit hard that left the ballpark this year.
But he's also, I feel like as a pitcher, I feel like he still has advanced year over year because he's striking more guys out. He's really efficient with his pitches, and I feel like his pitches move his stuff moves all over the place.
He still has a little bit of that, what I like to call Martin Perez syndrome, where he's very good for 5 innings, and then he has 1 inning that is just pitch inflation and gives up 2 or 3 runs, right. And that's why his ERA stays around 4 instead of starts dipping. Because Saturday night he was really good for 4 1/3 innings, and then he couldn't quite get out of that 5th inning, and they had to go to Spores early. And while that was still a relatively close game, the Rangers had to go to the bullpen way too early in a game where Dane Dunning enters the 5th inning with 55 pitches.
Yeah. And I mean, I like
Lorenzen, Gray, both. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You just took my whole segment over there. I was just gonna say exactly what you're about to say. Was just the positives in the rotation. Is John Gray's having his best, maybe one of his best runs as a starter. Lorenzen seems to really be about to pick up his stride. Like I said, Dunning, Heaney has pitched extremely well his
last 2 outings have both been
he's
good.
been really good. So and again, you just look, man. This is my take. This is a Kev take. Deal with it, whatever. But I believe at least one of these like young pitchers, they better pop off this year, man. Like one of them has to like turn some kind of freaking corner because like man, it's kind of time for that, you know? Like I fully expect Owen White to come out if he gets a spot start and come out and like take a step. Like I fully expect Jack Leiter to come back out and be better because it's not because I'm being hard on him, but it's like time for that stuff to happen right now. Like it's time. I expect Cole Winn to keep making progress going forward because
I don't want one hiccup for Cole Winn to turn into a steady downhill slide.
No, these guys need to step up and play well too because it's going to be part of what this team needs, not just this year, but for this thing. We can't just continue to go out and drop millions, dozens of millions of dollars on starting pitchers, veterans, because we don't develop. So these guys, some of these guys need to have a step up this year. I want to see it happen. And I'm believing that it's going to happen with at least one of these guys. So,
well, when we're talking about young guys, we're talking about the farm.
The farm.
And that just leads you right in to what we do in our spare time.
Yeah, so we have our exclusive content. It's called Down on the Farm with the Boys, where we cover all things Rangers minor league. Now, it is your one-stop shop. Helps you make us. That was pretty good. Your one-stop shop for all things Rangers, organization-wide. What we'll do is we give you the top 10 players of the week, and then we kind of give you the rundown of how they play. But as we kind of stop around the different parts of the minors, we also tell you about how that team's been doing, what's been going on with the team, and really like what you can expect from these guys. Because I think one of the things that we always want to know is when, like when is this guy going to be ready? When is he going to be a call-up, And I think ultimately, when you listen to the show, you kind of get more of a vibe of like, well, he's got to get on the 40-man roster first, and he's got to get to this level first. And then when he does that, he's got to do this. And so you kind of get to go step by step with these guys, and it gives you a better idea of when they're going to be coming and where they're at, where they should be in their development, so on and so forth, and why the Rangers have such a highly touted minor league system as of right now. So go to our website, TexasRangersWithTheBoys.com.
One word.
Or you can go to our Spotify page and subscribe there. Or you can do our video subscription, which there are 3 different levels here on the CTH network at Chilltown Hoops. And on that 3rd level, you can actually come onto the show and join us on video here with the podcast and give us your hot takes about our Texas Rangers. So go check it out. It's just $1.99 a month. Be the best $2 a month you spend in your whatever 2024. We had a cool gimmick back in the day.
$24 that you'll spend in 2024.
But about to come up with a better thing than whatever that was. So
the year now.
But hey, let's get into these. I would say one of the most exciting weekends. And again, as the year goes on, we're going to probably say this again some other time. But probably the most exciting, if not one of the most exciting weekends of the year. Rangers going on the road to play the upstart Kansas City Royals, who have a 1 through 5 in that lineup that can hang with the best of them, and really just a solid team overall. And they play some competitive ball. So Rangers go to Kansas City on Friday night, and Rangers did what they had to do. And I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of navigate that box score.
Well, I think the biggest moment of the game was Hunter Renfroe's home run.
Right.
It changed everything. I mean, Renfroe has not been hitting the ball at all this year. and he kind of seemed to be a thorn in the Rangers' side in the couple games that he played over the weekend.
Yeah.
And if a man, not making excuses because you scored one run,
Right.
but if you get through that sixth inning, there's no runs on the board. They go to Spores. You get your complement of Spores and Robertson and Yates to end the game because Michael Lorenzen was great. He was tremendous. He just gave up the one. I mean, he threw one bad pitch. I mean, he had a handful of bad pitches, but just threw the one that really got punished, and that was the difference in the game right there because that gave Kansas City an opportunity to see Cole Winn instead of Josh Spores. And, Cole Winn has been great this season so far. I don't want to make it sound like but if you got the choice between Spores and Cole Winn, I'm going with Spores in a late inning situation. But it didn't happen that way. Cole Winn, he gave up his first, hit, run, all of that stuff in the major leagues. It's not going to hopefully be too much of a deterring factor for him, and that he can just get right back on the horse. And when Bochy calls his name again, he'll be right back to the pitcher that he had been for the first half or the first handful of outings that he had for the Rangers. So we'll hope that doesn't get too slick, too slippery of a slope. Urena, not his best outing of the year for the Rangers. But overall, the pitching wasn't bad. This is where Yuri pitched. Yuri pitched in the ninth that game when they were down 7-1. He gave up a hit, but had a strikeout. Nothing doing. It was also 7-1, and everybody was trying to get home too. So the hitting wise, Seager had 2 hits. You're starting to think, oh man, maybe he's going to start coming out of this thing, but I haven't seen it just yet. But overall, he did have a pretty good weekend, minus the power. But yeah, overall, just not a lot going. The Rangers did have 7 hits, but not much put together, not much pieced together. They did have a pretty good chance against Schreiber there in the 7th, but it didn't work out the way they wanted it to. Had a couple of hits. He walked a couple of guys, but it ended up nothing out of it, and the Rangers lose 7-1. I don't know if you got a whole lot to add to this thing. It was a weird Friday night sit of Jonah Heim. But other than that, yeah, no, just a weird day off placement. But we saw in the rest of the series, I guess it's no different. If they'd have set him on Sunday, he wouldn't have hit the game-tying home run so there's Bochy just being a genius again.
Well, yeah, and I think Bochy, again, it goes back to him always having kind of the big picture in mind. Like, hey, look, if we're going to win the World Series, if we're going to win the whole thing, we can't put all our cards or all our eggs in the May 3rd basket. Like we can't put all our eggs in this basket. And honestly, if you lose because you're playing for the long haul, you aren't going to win the long haul anyway. That's what I think. That's what I think makes it brilliant. Is like we're gonna have to play 178 games if we're gonna win the whole thing. So we might as well play the whole year as if that's gonna happen. That way, when it does happen, we're there. If it doesn't happen, it wouldn't have mattered one way or another.
Agree.
It wouldn't make a difference had we won this game or not if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and there was always last year at the end of the year, what the Rangers had won one of those games in April where they said everybody they win the division, but if they win the division, things don't go the same way in the playoffs. You just never know. You never know how things ended up, and really, I don't really want to question Bochy ever, really, because it seems like every time he does something that's like a little befuddling, you look down the road 2 days, like today, with Jonah Heim hitting in the 9th inning of a 1-run game and him scorching a homer down the line. So, I kind of stopped, second guessing him I just thought it was a weird Friday night day off for Jonah Heim, but you had 2 night games back to back, and then the day. Maybe give him the day off on Friday so he can catch both the games of the weekend.
Yeah, and I think with Cole Winn, like I just think this is actually the moment I've been waiting for. Is like, how does he respond to this? Because we've never really seen this Cole Winn. I haven't. The Cole Winn I've always seen has been the wild pitches and the everything's going good, and then he has
himself in the foot.
Right, just whatever. So, I'm very interested to see how he responds over the next really few outings. And he's going to get some more. Urena, to me, this is Urena. Like, this is who he is. If he was a number 1 starter or a lights out reliever, he wouldn't have been a non-roster invite pickup. He's a guy that high ceiling, and we're hoping that he can be a little more consistent. So when he has outings like this, I don't like, oh man, what's wrong with Urena? It's like that in a way. That is kind of Urena. Like he is a fairly inconsistent guy.
You get what you can, right? You get what you can out of him right now.
You want to catch him on a hot streak where like maybe they turn a corner or they hit a part in their career where they've maybe figured a few things out. That's what you're hoping. But ultimately, this game was a 1-1 game up until the 7th inning. And what it boils down to is the Rangers lose that game in 1 inning pretty much by getting out hit, getting out pitched and really out hit in many ways, because Schreiber gave the Rangers every chance they could have to start their own little rally in the same inning. Rangers just couldn't capitalize, but the Rangers kicked themselves in the foot a little bit and said, well, what better way to make up for it than coming back out.
15.
Yeah, coming back out on a Saturday night and giving the Texas Ranger loyal fans a nice little shot in the arm with pretty much everybody besides Langford, who probably was going to get a hit on that hammy there. Everybody else, man, like every starter in the lineup that day on Saturday pretty much got in on the act, and a few guys off the bench. So, that was kind of a fun thing. And I think it was the second most runs the Rangers have ever scored without hitting a home run.
I was just going to say that they did all that without any home runs. That the only home run of the weekend was the Jonah Heim ball in the 9th inning. Everybody hit. Everybody looked like they were having fun. They were scoring runs. They were scoring in bunches. They had 3-run innings, and then the 5-run 9th that really capped things off. They got to Walker early. They got to him often, and he didn't last real long. The only thing that kept Dane Dunning from getting a win was not being able to get himself out of that 5th inning, and Bochy having to go to the bullpen there. But they came back and scored a couple of more runs in the 7th, and you're kind of feeling quite a bit better about things. Yeah, Dunning was really efficient, really good there in the first handful of innings, 4, I guess, and then in the 5th, just couldn't quite make the pitch to get himself out of it. It was still a close enough ball game where Bochy doesn't want to, get him in a position to where they got the tying run and on deck or something like that. And they went to Spores. Spores was able to, not Spores' best outing, but
I gotta say, Jake Latz to me was kind of the guy that like this game's over for the Rangers. And it was only one batter, but it felt shaky, and then Latz came in and just
stopped it. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And then Leclerc was good again. He's down 5.5 ERA, so we just continue to see that thing dropping. And then Hernandez gave up a run, but when you look at the run, it was like a infield ground ball, and it wasn't a whole lot to that run that scored on Hernandez.
Well, they weren't getting any good contact on Hernandez. Not really anything.
And this whole week with Hernandez, we've seen a lot of ground balls with that four-seamer, which is a good sign. His slider has been elite. So it's good to see Jonathan Hernandez getting back into the form of things, and hopefully this is the version of Jonathan Hernandez that we're going to get for the season, because he's been pretty good since coming back up off from basically not getting a full spring training. That's why he was on the IL. He's out of options, and he didn't have a full spring training. Very similar to Spores last year, where they kept him around, even though it was like, what are you going to do with this guy? And well, you saw what they did with Spores in the World Series. He closed down game 5 of the championship, or what, for the championship. So, but everybody hit. Simeon, Seager, not a great day for Seager, but he did get a hit, scored a run. Duran came in to replace him. Zeke had a hit and a run, or a hit and an RBI. Nathaniel Lowe had a huge day, 4 for 6, a couple of RBIs, scored a couple of runs. Really nice day for Nate Lowe. Dallas Garcia got in on it. He had a sac fly and a single to score a run. Carter was 2 for 4 with a double and a triple, I think. Maybe just a single and a triple, but
yeah, he had a single and a triple, and Josh Smith was a triple too.
Yeah, Josh Smith also had a triple, and then like we said, Langford, 0 for 3. His replacement Jankowski was 1 for 2, scored a couple of runs, drove in a couple of runs. So it was like,
he was just awesome.
Yeah, I love to see it too, because he just seems like the most humble, down to earth kid that just loves playing baseball. And like we said, he's got so many damn kids, he just has to play as long as he can. So, any contract that he gets, I'm happy for him, and any playing time that he gets, he's always performed. I mean, there was a down the stretch last year where he kind of stopped hitting a little bit, but then the moment they needed him in the World Series, there he was again. So, I think there's a lot of love in this town for Travis Jankowski. And what did we decide his nickname was? What was it? Like something so silly.
I don't remember. I literally am drawing a complete blank. We'll have to
It was like a Mr. Rogers, Fred for Fred Rogers. They just call him Fred. He's got the wildest nickname in baseball. That's like, there's some good nicknames, but that one's just wild. I love it. But every time he plays, and Langford, I thought Salvi Perez was looking like a cat behind the plate to get Wyatt Langford out, and then they show it again, and Langford like holds up like 6-8 feet down the line, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought Salvi was looking like old Gold Glove Salvi,
nope.
but no, the pass balls and the wild pitches and all that stuff. He's not quite the catcher he was about 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
No, he might need to.
But still a very potent part of that Royals lineup. So they need the bat. Can't play first base because they got the Pasquatch there. So it seems like his choice is probably DH, but maybe play first base against tough righties or tough lefties or something like that. But behind the plate, I mean, he still calls a pretty good game. I mean, so. It's not all bad. It's hard watching guys get old, I mean, 32 for a big dude to catch like Salvi. I mean, he's a big dude. So, but I thought he was like pouncing on things like the old days, but really it was just an injury. And then Heim had another nice day, 2 for 3. He had a couple of walks too that so he had a big day. Tavares was 2 for 5. Tavares is in a nice little groove at the plate. He's in the midst of a 6-game hitting streak where he's hitting 330 plus over that stretch of time. And when we talk about Sunday's game, we'll talk about him being the catalyst for the whole thing. But overall, man, this was one of those games. The Rangers hit 500 with runners in scoring position. Jankowski stole a base. They rolled a double play when they needed one. It just seemed like everything. It felt very last year playing the Royals early in the season. But these are not the same two teams that played last year early in the season. And I'll throw it over to you. You recap what you want on Saturday, or you can move us right along to the main event on Sunday.
Yeah, I would say one of the most promising elements of the early part of this season for me has really been because, Jonah Heim, last year could have been like one of those kind of like year one in a million years where, he slips back into, the
Normality.
220, 220, 230, 15 homer guy, maybe 60 runs batted in. And we've got a really good catcher, like no one would be mad about that. But it seems like this year he's out to prove that the guy he was last year is the guy he is. That's who he is, and you can kind of see it. He's got a swagger about him now for sure, where he just seems to exude some confidence, and he's just kind of he just seems to have a lot more leadership kind of qualities to him, and I just think, man, he has been kind of the unsung hero of this team up to this point because of all of this stuff. Obviously, Adolis Garcia, when I say unsung, Adolis Garcia has been the best player on the offensive side, period. Like the numbers say that. But Jonah Heim is kind of the unsung hero because day in, day out, consistency, leadership, and his numbers this year. I mean, last year he was 258, 317, 438. This year, 276, 321, 419. So the slug is a tad bit down, but not crazy. But 20 runs batted in, 4 homers, 3 doubles. I just, man, he again, we're going to talk about him hitting this clutch home run on the game yesterday. But overall, he's just kind of been a guy that I'm like, man, I'm glad Jonah Heim's up the bat right now. Like that moment has happened a lot this year. So that's kind of my only big takeaway. The other big takeaway, I'm starting to believe I'm starting to believe Josh Smith. I mean, I'm starting to believe it now. And in the field too. I mean, he's kind of under average as far as the arm at third base. Like you can kind of tell, especially when he gets out into no man's land, where some of those third basemen with the big guns, they just turn around and just throw a rifle. And he's kind of like having to really rush to kind of get the ball out a lot faster than normal. But he isn't a third baseman. So the fact that he's been pretty much solid over there with the glove, which is all you can really ask of him because he's not really a third base arm guy. But also too, like at the plate, like I just think, man, it's just really great to see a young player, minor league guy that we need some of these guys to step up. And it's just been really good to see him step up. And I'm starting to believe it. And I'm starting to get some really positive feelings about Zeke Duran too, that he might be getting ready to turn a corner. And you just said Leody Taveras is in the middle of a hot streak right now. This is what Simeon, Seager, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, that like this is what those guys need, are these role player guys to kind of step their game up and bring their game up. And that's what's going to really make this team take off, especially offensively. So
I thought we kind of saw that on Sunday with the team. I mean, they were in things didn't go well for them early in the game. They thought they got that Lynch kid out there, and I mean, for all it should have been a lynching. Yeah. But it wasn't. It was and it looked like it was going to be right there off the bat. He walked a couple of batters, gave up a hit, and next thing you know, the Rangers have got bases loaded, 1 out, and then he just does what every pitcher has done to the Rangers with the bases loaded and less than 2 outs this year, and that just get through it. And Josh Smith had a chance there. I think if the whole game is completely different if Josh Smith, hits something over Pasquantino's head right there, and you come up with a couple of runs, and that may have been the end for Lynch right there if it had been the case, because he was at about 40 pitches and he was getting not lit, but it looked like the wheels were starting to come off. And once he got through that, he retired the next 10, 12 batters in a row that he faced. He gave up a Garcia single somewhere in there, but other than that, he was really good. You know what the play of the game to me was in the bottom of the 10th, the Royals had sacrificed their DH to put Salvador Perez at first base to run for Pasquantino earlier in the game. And Bobby Witt's number comes up with a runner at second, 2 outs, and they didn't have to pitch to him because the Royals are coming off the bench with a pinch hitter to face David Robertson in the 9th inning of a 1-run ball game. So I thought that was a big moment in the game whenever the Royals sacrificed their DH there because they had a couple of run lead, and that was the guy that stole second and stole third and ended up getting stranded there by Yates. And it was probably the right move by Kansas City, but it came back and bit them there in the 10th whenever Bobby Witt, there's an open base and you don't have to throw to him. I mean, the guy comes off the bench and beats you, tip your cap, but right. Bobby Witt's been beating you all damn day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a special talent, that kid. So,
yeah.
I mean, he had the triple, he had the double. I mean, he just does a lot out there in the, in the field. And when he walks, you're nervous because he's probably taking second and now he's in scoring position. But Bobby Witt, he's a tremendous player. The big moment for the Rangers, though, Tavares dumps that double in to lead off the 8th. Simeon punches something over to the right side to get him over to third base, and then Seager far enough, deep enough fly ball to score him. And you're thinking, okay, now you're just you get a home run here in the 9th, and you got this thing. You get a bloop and a blast, and you can win this thing. So you're starting to feel a little bit more confident after that, and Heim in the bottom of in the top of the 9th. That was a rocket. That was a line drive rocket. The ball hadn't been carrying. The ball hadn't been carrying at all this week in Kansas City with all the humidity, that big outfield that they have out there. So him getting into one, driving it to right down the right field line and hitting that foul pole. That was probably the biggest moment. I felt like today was definitely my favorite Rangers game of the season because it was so disappointing for 7 innings and the bats didn't show up after they just put up 15. But then things kind of turned around there in the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And that 10th inning wasn't just a piece of cake either.
No.
They needed an error there from somebody to move the runner. They had first and third. Nate Lowe came up with a big hit there. Garcia got doubled up on a ball that he didn't run out that they probably shouldn't have turned 2 on. But It is what it is. They get the run in the 10th. That run also scored by Leody Tavares. So he scored 2 runs today. He had a hit, and he's starting to work that batting average up a little bit, and he's had a pretty good stretch these last couple of games. The pitching was fabulous again. John Gray is having a monster season. He's just going out there, taking the ball, and like when they scored after that Pasquantino double that scored Bobby Witt that second time, it was like he just turned it off. There was like, he had given up base runners like in every inning through like the 4th or something like that. And then 5th, 6th, and 7th, he was like perfect. And he was in and out of the dugout fast. He got through things in less than 100 pitches. He went back out with like 89 pitches, 88 pitches, something like that. So his 7th inning was real quick. He got that thing to Kirby Yates, and Kirby Yates gave him a chance to put some runs on the board to get that thing back in their favor, and it's a real luxury to be able to go to David Robertson as your closer when your closer just worked 2 innings for you to get you in the position that you're in.
Yeah, I think actually that was like a perfect segue. We didn't even plan that, but I think that's the thing I wanted to talk about the most, besides obviously the Jonah Heim home run, and then the just doing what you got to do to get that run in the 9th was just a beautiful thing to watch. But the luxury of having a deep bullpen, especially since you had to use guys up to this point, and the fact that you had 2 guys that you could go to, that Yates gave you 2 really, really good innings there, and that's your closer. To have the luxury of David Robertson to come in and help close the game out,
career saves or something like that.
Oh man, thank you, Chris Young. That's all I can say there is thanks, CY. for, making moves that, we didn't know. We don't know. We don't know how it's
Thanks
going
for
to turn out.
signing David Robertson and Kirby Yates with half of the money that Houston gave old boy Josh Hader.
Right, not even. I mean, probably less than half.
A quarter of the money that they gave him for just this year or whatever.
Right. So, yeah, great moves by the Rangers to get those two veteran guys in here, and already paying huge dividends, and just the ability, because last year, man, we're shaking in our boots if any of those guys go out there in both of those situations. And so to have, I'm talking about Will Smith, I'm talking about, Jose Leclerc, I'm talking about Aldis Chapman, like those guys go out there and you're nervous. Like these guys, man, they don't play around like that. I mean,
you got a runner on third base, less than 2 outs, Salvi Perez at the plate up 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
And they got nothing. So that's impressive.
Well, let's preview these next couple of games.
We just got one because we'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about who's going to start Tuesday, and then we'll talk about who's going to start the doubleheader on Wednesday. And if they don't have anybody scheduled, we'll just guess and have fun with it. But tomorrow, it's 8:40 Central here, local time in DFW. Heaney versus Wood. Andrew Heaney. Coming off his best start of the season. He's still 0-4, but he's got that ERA down close to 5. And then Alex Wood will be going for the A's. He's 1-2 with a 6.32 ERA. And that thing's going to be, for anybody that's not in the DFW area, this is going to be an MLB network TV game. So if you want to watch the Rangers and you don't live in the area, it's not Bally Sports or whatever, you can find it on Major League Baseball Network tomorrow.
Love it. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. What a great weekend for the Texas Rangers. What a great weekend to be a Rangers fan. Don't forget to check us out on social media, TX Rangers WTV. Don't forget to check out that website, TexasRangersWithTheBoys.com.
One word.
Where you can check out our exclusive content down on the farm with the boys, where we cover all things Rangers minor league. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube at the CTH Network at Chill Town Hoops. And again, that too. And again, big shout out to all of our farm hands who subscribe to our exclusive content down on the farm with the boys. For the 300-pound manimal, this is your boy Kev. We are Texas Rangers with the boys, signing out.